All right, hello and welcome. Today at Last Epoch University, we're going to talk about loot filters. This is a pretty big topic for new players trying to figure out how the loot filter works, how to, set everything up, what they need to filter for, whether or not they need to make one themselves or they can use someone else's. We're going to cover all that today. So let's go ahead and just get into it. All right, starting with what is a loot filter? For a lot of players that come from different genres or from Diablo 4, they don't necessarily have any reason to know what a loot filter is. So what it is, it's a way to filter out items that don't fit your criteria. For example, the item is too low of a level, or it has the wrong affixes, or it doesn't have the right affixes, or it has an undesirable rarity, etc. You can filter out just about any way you want. So depending on how you set up the filter, you can get a wide variety of outcomes that tailor your particular needs. It is also a way to highlight items you don't want to miss. So maybe rare fixes, or particularly high tiers, or valuable items. You can set it to recolor it or emphasize it in some way that makes it clear to you what you're seeing and allows you to know that you need to pick that item up or check it out in some way. So PoE has a filter, a loot filter, and Last Epoch is a loot filter. PoE's is probably like the most well-known loot filter of any video game, I'd say. What are the advantages of Last Epoch's filter versus PoE's filter for those who come from PoE? It is far easier to make your own. PoE, almost everyone uses Filterblade, which is a website that auto-populates a filter for you. But in Last Epoch, while you can definitely use filters from others or an auto-populator, it's so much easier to make your own than a lot of people do. It has an in-game interface, the UI is easy to use, and the rules are relatively easy to grasp. And we'll be going over those later in the lesson. It's also easier to design build-specific filters. Filterblade for PoE tends to be very generic, which works fine for that game, but in this game you can really design. If you're playing a Shadow Dagger rogue, like I've been playing the last few days, you can design a filter that's specifically looking for items for that build, and that's a lot of power to really help you filter out the things that you might not want. Filters are also very easy to change on the fly in this game. This might be arguably the most powerful part of it, is as you are adjusting your character, finding things that fit it, no longer need certain rules or want to modify certain rules, make them stricter, make them less strict, whatever it might be. It's very easy to do that in this game. So you're not stuck with a filter that either doesn't change or changes in some way that is a little bit more arbitrary. You can have total control over it. There are, however, some disadvantages compared to PoE's loot filter system. For one, there are no custom sounds. In fact, there are no audio options at all. I think this is personally a big miss, and they've talked about adding them, but as far as I know, 1.0 will not have these. I hope they add these in the future, because getting an auditory sound for a really powerful item is really nice, and make sure you don't miss it, but we unfortunately don't have that yet. Visual customization is also quite a bit more limited. 11th Hour Games they don't give you a color wheel or anything like that. They're just like, here's the colors you're allowed to use. And so we can't really customize them as much as I personally would like to. And if you're used to that in PoE, it's not terrible by any means. There are quite a few colors to choose from, but they are definitely more limited than what you would be used to. You also cannot filter out shards, glyphs, or runes, which are the closest equivalent to PoE currency. They are crafting materials. However, it's generally not as important for LE. There is an argument to be made for shards that you might want to filter, or at least emphasize some things. But most of the crafting materials that are really good are already emphasized by the game, and so generally this isn't a big problem. It's also not too hard to pick up most of the crafting material. It's not too much work overall, so not a big deal, really. All right, so you now know about loot filters, and you have an idea that they're important, but you don't really want to make your own because that's quite a bit of work, and it is quite a bit of work. It usually takes me a good 10 to 20 minutes to make a single loot filter, and I know what I'm doing. I do make fairly elaborate loot filters, but still, that's a good bit of time to be spent on setting up rules and whatnot. Not everyone wants to do that. So what you can do is you can import a downloadable format that you can then put into your own loop filter system. There's actually two formats that you can do. There's a XML file. You just download the XML file and drop it into your folder, or you can actually copy paste the loop filter rules that have been given to you somewhere else into your own loop filter. So very easy overall to import an exported filter into your system. Also, many build guides, if you're following those, include a loop filter. So, for example, all of the max roll guides, this is where I put my guides, come with the loop filter. Every single one of them has a loop filter. So you just go to the guide and then you click on the loop filter link and then you download it. And there you go. You have it. Just pop it into your folder and you're good to go. If you're making a build that you're not following, like if you're making your own build, but you don't want to make a loop filter, you can do something like lastepochtools.com's filter creator. That is also an option that will give you at least a pretty good filter to work with. It might not be as customizable as someone who like really knows what they're doing in there, but it will work for most people. Okay, so let's actually get into how to add a filter. So we're going to start looking at the game a little bit here. So first you download the filter. For example, you go to maxroll.gg and download a filter from there. Then you select import a filter if available. Otherwise, press a plus in the top right. So let's go ahead and just load our loop filter. Okay, I've actually got one already in here. So here's the export filter. We click on this, or we can click, on the plus sign, and then we can open the filter folder. So we open the filter folder. Looks like this. And then the file that you downloaded, you drag and drop in here. Alternatively, you can do the copy paste method. So if you choose paste clipboard contents and you have one copied already, that will drop it in here. And then you just have to rename it and then you're good to go. Okay. There we go. Pretty easy stuff. Okay, but what if you want to make your own filter? What if you're one of those crazy people like me who's like, I actually want to do this myself and have total control over it? The rest of this lesson will be devoted to that. If you don't care about that, you're good to go at this point. You can move on to the next lesson. But for anyone who wants to make it, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to go into pretty significant detail about all the different features and rule sets and whatnot of the loop filter system. So you'll at least have a basic understanding. You won't be, you won't be a god about it yet. You're still going to have to get into it yourself, but you'll have a basic understanding of what everything does. All right, so we're going to make our own. We're going to open the filter screen, just as we did, which is with Shift F. So Shift F is the easiest way to do it. You can also do it here by clicking on this little drop down here and going into, oh wait, actually they don't have full filter on here. My bad. We have to go into settings, don't we? Yep, so if we go into settings and we go to manage loop filters, here we go. And that brings up our filter. They really should have one there. Anyway, from there we can choose to create new filter by clicking the plus at the top right. Here we go, create new filter. And we can now name it. We're going to name this LE Uni Example Filter. Put a description in there. You can choose your icon and then choose your filter color. Then confirm. And we now have the skeleton for a loop filter that we can then fill in. Okay. Let's look at the UI for the filter, start with that, and then from there, we will go into the different rules and other things that you can do with it. So the first thing you have is the drop down here. This allows you to look at all the filters you have. As you can see, I have quite a few loop filters. From here, you can select a different filter, select this one, and it just immediately loads. Where was that one I was using? There it is. We have the edit button. This just allows you to edit the title, description, icon, and color that we had just chosen. We have the duplicate, which literally makes a copy of a filter you already have. This is really good if you have a filter that's close to what you want, but not at quite the same, or if you want to have like two different versions. Maybe you want one for Merchant's Guild, maybe one for Circle of Fortune. So you duplicate one that you already created, and then you edit from there instead of creating a fresh one. You have the add rule. This is going to be very, very important. This is where you actually set up the entire filter. This here is just basically information and also another way to access filters. Not really important. And then we have the delete and export filters down here. The export filter actually allows you to send it to someone else. And then the delete filter, self-explanatory. It will get rid of that filter, so be careful. All right. So let's get into adding rules. How does that work? So we need to add rules to actually filter anything, right? So we're going to click add rule, and then this edit rule box comes up, and it's got a lot of different things. I'm going to probably go a little bit ahead of the PowerPoint here because it'll just be easy for me to flow, and then we'll see where we're at with the PowerPoint. Okay, so first we have visibility. We click on that. We have three choices. We have show, we have hide, and we have recolor. Show is I want to see this if these conditions to the rule are met. So I have these conditions. I'm looking for these affixes. I'm looking for these bases, whatever it is. If it goes through the filter, goes through this rule, and it finds that those conditions are met, then it shows. Hide is the opposite, of course. If you meet the conditions, it will not show that item. You will not see it. And then recolor is like show, but on steroids because you get to change the color. You can choose this ugly green here, or you can choose this really cool cyan color, or this red. You get to choose what color that becomes. So lots of customization options there. Also, if we choose either show or recolor, we can emphasize. Emphasize just makes it larger, so it'll show up bigger than other things on the ground. Character level dependency says this rule only applies during these character levels. So if I put in there, for example, 1 and 20, then this rule will only be active for any character who's between the levels of 1 and 20. So if I'm level 21, it no longer applies. If I'm 99, doesn't apply. If I'm level 14, it does apply. Okay, the next thing that's very important is add condition. You have to have conditions to your rules, or otherwise they don't do anything. So we can click this. You can add multiple conditions. The more conditions you have, the stricter it's going to make your filter because each condition has to be met in order for that rule to apply. When we click condition, and we can click the drop down, these are the conditions we can add. We can add a fixed condition, a class requirement condition, a level condition, a rarity condition, and an item type condition. So we'll go through these individually. First, we'll just talk about what they are, and then we'll show the different things you can do with them. Affix. I'm looking for these affixes, health, dodge, melee crit chance, etc. That's what I'm looking for in this condition. Class requirement. Which class does it apply to? Primalist, mage, rogue, etc. Level. This is not the character level on the character level dependency. This is the level of the item. So each item has a specific level requirement. This is going to look for that. Rarity. Is it going to be a normal item? Is it going to be an exalted item, unique? For example, if we want to hide all normal items because nobody uses them, we could do a hide, rarity, normal, and that would hide all those items. If we want to do a show, make sure that all uniques and set and exalted items show no matter what else we have in the filter. That's what we would click. We would click all three of these like that. And then we have item type. So this actually has two parts to it. It's got the basic type, one-handed axe, body armor, etc. And we click on one of these. Let's just choose one-handed axe. And then we get to subtypes. Subtypes are the specific, in this case, one-handed axes that can drop. From a hatchet to a shadow cleaver, and we can click which ones we want. So maybe we only want some of these. Let's say we want to hide these because we're a higher level character. We don't need these anymore. We can click all those, confirm, and then we're hiding all of those. Do note that you cannot select two things in here and still do subtypes. It will only do subtypes if you've selected one. So if you want to hide lower level bases or whatever bases that you want of multiple item types, you need multiple rules to do that. So you do item type, one-handed axe, and then your subtypes. Then you do a second rule for maces and a third rule for swords, whatever it is you might want. That is the really only limitation here. Okay, where are we as far as the PowerPoint? We should be pretty good along here. Yep, we just covered all this. We've basically covered this, but let's go into details on each one. Okay. So let's start with the affixes. Now, how do we use this option? We're going to leave advanced options for later, and we'll come back to it. So when we're on the affixes, we can click in here and we can choose the affixes we want. And this is literally every affix in the game. Every single one, even idles, are in here. Experimental affixes, everything is in here. So you get to choose which ones you want when you choose this rule. Here's all the idles, general idles, all 38 affixes of them. So let's say we want to look for health. In this particular case, we want to look for every health affix. We can click all those, confirm. There we go. We have all 3 selected. And then we can choose how many of the affixes need to be on the item. So we have 3 health selected. Maybe we only want to see at least 1, but maybe we want to see 2. We want to see at least 2 of these. This is a pretty strict filter, but we could want to do this. So in this case, we're going to recolor to a nice pinky purple color anything that has 2 of the 3 health affixes that we have selected in here. Okay. Pretty easy to use the affix one. Not a whole lot going on there. Class requirement, even easier. Literally just choose the classes that matter. This is most commonly used to hide classes that you're not playing. So if I'm a rogue, I do that. And now everything that is not rogue specific, so if it gives a primalist requirement or a mage requirement, not generic stuff, but like the required, I need to be a mage to do this, I won't see that. With a faction system, this will probably be more for the COF players, the players who are not going to trade. The people who are going to trade might not want this rule, but regardless, this is how you would set that up if you want to do it. Okay, level, also very easy. You have below level, above level, max level, below character level. So that one actually is like, I am not level 90, and this is set to 10, so I only see things level 80 and above. If I'm level 100, I'll see things 90 and above. And highest usable level is, I won't see anything that's too high for me. This rule honestly isn't used very often, at least I haven't seen many people use it, but this allows you to do like level range type stuff. Rarity, normal, magic, rare, exalted, unique set. Very, very simple stuff. This is often used to hide things, like we mentioned, like normal, or maybe you want to hide all normal magic items because they're not very useful. Or maybe you want to make sure you always see exalted unique sets. This is the rule you're looking for. And then item type, we talked about this already a good bit. This is where the items are, the bases on them. The base item, one-handed sword, one-handed axe, and the subtypes. And that covers all those. Right, what else do we have? Oh, we have multiple conditions. We already kind of talked about this though. So, but here's the, let's do an example. All right, let's say I want to see, we're gonna do the double condition thing here. I want to see and emphasize and actually recolor red, because red is like, I'm definitely not going to miss that. Let's say that I am playing a character that really, really, really needs critical strike to be capped. This happens fairly regularly, especially for melee. So I really want to see a melee critical strike chance on an item. So I need it to be exalted. All right, so this is going to say this is going to say that I need a melee critical strike chance weapon, and the weapon's also exalted. This might not be how you'd want to set up, because what you actually want is a tier 7 melee critical strike chance itself, which we'll talk about with the advanced options. But this would be one way to make sure that you're only seeing exalted items that have melee critical strike chance in red and emphasized. So that happens. Oh, it's got that and it's exalted. Boom, it's red and it's emphasized. Okay. Yeah, let's talk about modifying an existing rule. So let's say you've let's set this up. So we've got this rule here, right? But I'm like, man, I actually need to change this. I don't quite like how it is. Very easy to change it. Just click on it, and then it brings up the edit rule. That easy. It's really, really simple. Deleting and turning off a rule. Yeah. So we've got this rule here. And let's say we have one of two things that could happen. We'll actually talk about 3 options here, but we have one of 2 things that could happen if we don't want to use it right now. Either we could say we don't ever want to use it again, or we don't want to use it now, but we'll want to use it later. If you don't want to use it now, but want to use it later, just click this little checkbox here, and it is now disabled. It will not work. It will not function until you click it again. So now it's working, now it's not. If you're just done with the rule, you click the X. If you want to make a copy of the rule, maybe it's very close to something else, another rule you need, but it's not quite the same, hit duplicate. Duplicate. There we go. I have 2 rules. Now I don't want it. I X out. Gone. Okay. Yeah, rule priority logic is a really important one. So we already talked about like how to set up show, hide, but what happens when they conflict? What happens when they both fit the item, but maybe one's a hide and one's a show? This happens a lot. In fact, you're going to want this to happen. So let's set up an example. We're going to add a hide condition for rarity, normal, magic, and rare. So we're hiding all the normal, magic, and rare. But we probably don't want to hide every rare, especially early on, even mid-game, potentially even late game. We don't want to hide everything that's rare, but we don't want to see most rares. So we create this one as like a catch-all for anything that we don't want. But then we create one for what we do want to see. So we do a show, and let's do a fix-based. Let's say we want to see all the melee. This is probably not going to have, but let's just say we want to see all the melee items. Anything that's got melee on it. So now we see all the melee items. But we also have the hide rule for normal, magic, and rare. So how do we make sure that when we get a rare item that has melee, or any item really, that has melee affixes on it, that they actually show? Well, rule order priority in this game is top to bottom. So the top rule is the highest priority. It's the most important. It overrules the bottom ones. So as I'm set up now, this will work like we want. This will say, okay, there's a melee critical strike chance on this, and you told me to show all items that have that affix on it. Here it is. However, if we changed it to this, and we had a rare item that dropped with melee critical strike chance, we would not see it because the hide all being on top takes priority. So we have to make sure that we have these ordered properly. As you can see, that's it, just as simple as dragging and dropping to prioritize your. I don't know why this one's screwing me. There we go. To reprioritize your rules. So make sure that you have them set up properly. If you have a hide too high up, and you don't have it set up the right way, you could accidentally not see things that you want to see. The same goes for show. If you have it above a hide and you wanted the hide to actually kick in first, you set it up wrong, you're going to see more than you want to see. Okay. All right, let's do a quick loot filter basic strategy. So you want to create a loot filter, and you don't know where to start. This is what we're going to do. We're going to create a very basic place for you to begin from. So what we're going to do is we're going to set a hide rule below show and recolor, right? So we want a hide rule underneath, just like we set up here. We have the hide all normal magic rare. That's a catch all for the unwanted items. So that's already in here. Yeah. We're going to actually delete that one. So we've already got this rule. Hide all normal magic rare items. That's set up. Above that, we're going to show the wanted items, right? So let's say we're looking for, go a little bit more, let's be a little bit crazier this time. Something kind of a real world scenario, right? So let's show with item types. Let's say we want to see, we're going to be a dagger build. We want to see daggers, but we don't want to see all the daggers. We want to see, let's see, what are good actual daggers to see. Chris is pretty good to see, at least for a while. And then let's go with the Sai, the Chitin, and the Obsidian. We want to see one of those, it's got to be one of those 4 daggers. But also, it's got to have melee physical, or melee attack speed, or melee crit. Yeah, that's good. It's got to have one of those affixes. So we did this all within the same rule. It's got to be one of those 4 daggers, and it's got to have one of those 3 affixes. As we talked about before, as long as this rule's below, the hide rule's below the show, then this will show those daggers. So now we've got that set up. We got it above it. And we can just keep doing that. We can keep setting up more and more. So that we've got one here now for the daggers. Let's say we want to take care of our body armor. So we need to choose our body armor. There we go. We choose our body armor, and we're a rogue. So we want to see only the good rogue body armors. These are all pretty solid. There's a lot of this depends on your build, but generically those are pretty solid. Okay, and then we need the items or the affixes we want on it. Of course, you can make these stricter. Let's make this one a little bit stricter. So let's see. Let's go with some attributes. So Dex, Vitality, and then let's do added increased health. These are all generally really good for body armor. Let's also do dodge. Let's do increased dodge. Okay, and this time we want to see at least 2 of these affixes in the item. All right, there we go. We've got them. We can just keep adding these rules until you have every gear slot selected. Okay, so that's a very basic one. There are more advanced things you can do though. Like you can put more specific hide rules above show rules. For example, you want axes with melee fizz prefix, but only if they are level 55. You can add melee fizz to the show affix list, then make a new rule above it that hides all axe subtypes that aren't level 55. Basically, there's a bunch of different ways to do this. So whatever works best for you, and you might find that over time you want to do them a little bit differently. There's no necessarily right way to do it. The way I'm showing you here is a very easy way to do it, but I definitely encourage you to play around with it. All right, the last thing we're going to talk about, some advanced functions. So this is going to be important too if you're going to create a more elaborate setup. So we already have this one here where we've chosen 2 affixes of the same type. We've chosen the affixes, we've chosen the body armor types. But let's say the number of affixes really matters to us, right? So we don't want to see any affixes, anything that doesn't have affixes that are at least tier 3. Those are the affixes that we are looking for, right? So we've got the vitality, dexterity, increased health, added health, and increased dodge we're looking for. This says only count those if they're at least tier 3. If they're tier 2, tier 1, they don't count. And then we also want this thing to be at least a total of, let's say 12. Okay, so average is tier 3 for all of them. So what this is going to do is it's going to say, okay, I need to have at least 2 affixes on the item that are tier 3, and they're one of those 5 affixes that were selected. It also has to be the right subtype of body armor. So it has to first be the right subtype of body armor. It has to have 2 of those 5 affixes. Those affixes have to be at least tier 3, and then the overall number of affixes on the item, including affixes that I haven't selected for, but just the overall, has to be at least 12. You probably wouldn't set up quite like this, but this is the power that you have so that you can really choose to what's the word I want, to customize this the way that works best for you. There's a lot of power in the loop filter, and the advanced options are definitely a big part of that. Okay, that's everything for this lesson. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I stream a lot on Twitch, especially at 1.0. I'll be streaming all of the time. And we do have a Discord where you can come in and ask questions and talk to other people that play Last Epoch and share your experiences with all of us, and they can share theirs with you. We'd love to have you there. I'll drop those into the description below. Thanks again for watching. I hope you have a great time in Last Epoch, and I'll see you all again real soon.